What's up? It's 92.9 WDUP, New London's home of timeless hip-hop and R&B. We got a very special guest on the phone right now. His name is Kading, former LAPD detective. He covered Biggie and Tupac murders, and he has the new documentary out called Murder Rap that can be seen on iTunes now, and was released a few months back on Reels Network, and will be on Netflix shortly. Ray, how you doing, man?
I'm good, man. Thanks. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right, man. How's your vacation, man? Tell everybody how you doing right now.
I'm great, actually. I'm doing really good. Thanks.
Hey, man, give everybody just a quick overview of how you actually cover this case and what's the documentary about, real quick.
Well, I got assigned to investigate Biggie's murder way after the fact. I didn't get involved in it until like 2003 as a result of a lawsuit that was going on against the city of LA. So I get involved. I get part of a task force of a bunch of guys, and we decide that we're going to expand the investigation and include the feds, and that leads to the discovery of people involved in Pac's murder. So initially we were investigating Biggie's murder. We stumble upon people involved in Pac's murder, and then, through continued investigation, we kind of solved both cases.
Prior to actually having this case come across your desk, did you have any preconceived notions about the actual case itself, or did you come in there just as a blank canvas?
Yeah, I think I was more of a blank canvas. I was aware of the murders because they got a lot of media attention, but I wasn't following these guys. That genre of music wasn't the genre of music that I was paying attention to. So I came in as a blank canvas. It was just another investigation to me, but of course, because of the high-profile celebrity nature of it, it was a little bit different than maybe some of the other cases that I'd handled in my career.
All right, so because like the first actual incident was in '96. When Pac actually got murdered. What was you doing back in '96? And what was your whole take on the hip hop genre back in '96 when it first took place?
Well, back in '96, I was working in a narcotics unit. I was working as a kind of organized crime narcotics division. And, I wasn't really paying attention to the hip-hop world. Again, that's not my genre of music. I'm a rock and roller, kind of old-school rock guy. And but I was aware of what was happening with the movements coming out of Compton. And, there was kind of more of an adversarial perspective, from the street rap, especially the gangster rap music versus the cops. So I did have that kind of adversarial perspective on it initially. But again, the music was irrelevant to a certain degree from the case. We were investigating a murder, not whether or not we liked the music.
All right, so when you actually had the case come across your desk, did you actually look at the Russell Poole theories, or did you look at any online theories? I know you say you came with a blank canvas, but the thing is, when you actually had the thoughts come across your desk, it's just what approaches you take going into this.
Well, our approach was to treat all of the different theories as if they could be true. We didn't know, what happened, so the only thing that we could do was to just follow the evidence, follow the leads, and follow the facts and see where they led. If Russell Poole's theory was plausible, then obviously we're going to go down that road. If the ideas of the Crips being involved, the Bloods being involved, we were considering everything as a possibility, and we could only kind of set those theories aside after eliminating them through our investigation.
All right, so from my knowledge, me doing my research, you took the case on back in '06. Am I right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, alright, so, pretty much a decade passed since you took it on. And the thing is, when you came in there, did you get a lot of friction, from other people who have been investigating for the last decade, prior to you coming in there?
No, not at all, because nobody was really investigating it. It was a cold case. There was nobody really proactively investigating it at that time. So we just had boxes of investigative material that had been acquired over a period of years. And again, we just went in there with kind of this open-minded perspective let's see what's in these books, let's see what the evidence says, let's, investigate the theories and see what happens. So there was no adversarial issues. Russell Poole and his whole thing had kind of taken off it taken a life of its own in the public. But what was happening, with the investigation was a completely different story.
Yeah, for those who may not be in the know, Russell Poole kind of alleged that, Suge might be behind it, or, corrupt cops might be behind it, and a lot of people might be under the mind frame that you was actually out here just prove him and just keep it moving and not actually solve the case. Like, how emotionally invested have you been into this whole scenario, actually solving the case, I heard your interview with High 97, and you around Miss Wallace, and you said you had a good rapport with her, and you got to be around Miss Shakur and everything like that. Like, how emotionally invested are you into this case now?
Emotionally invested? I don't know. That's a really hard one to answer because it's hard to gauge your own. It's hard to be objective, maybe, about your own perspective on things. I mean, I would say that I'm not emotionally invested. But then there's times where I think about her and it stirs up my emotions. So, I don't know. It's really hard to say.
All right, so when was the point, and you said you took on the case in 06. When was the point where you actually had KPD on your actual radar?
Well, he was on the radar from the beginning. Back in 2006 when we got the case, we had the information that he had been in Las Vegas, and that he had been at the Peterson Auto Museum in Los Angeles. So he was a guy that we knew was present at both of these scenes where either Tupac or Biggie were murdered. So he was on our radar from the very beginning.
All right, and I got to make sure I got my info right, because initially you thought KPD might have been behind the Biggie attack. It said it's a pocket attack, but he flipped it on you and said he was actually behind the pot ambush instead of the Biggie ambush, if I got my facts right.
Yeah, no, you got your facts right. So yeah, we went into it thinking that potentially the Southside Crips and KPD and his crew may have been involved in the Biggie murder because we had information that maybe they were retaliating for an unpaid debt having to do with security for Bad Boy or potentially for the hit on Tupac. So they were viable persons of interest in regard to the Biggie Smalls case. So we approached him with that. We wanted to question him about the Biggie case. But like you said, he came and said, hey, that one wasn't us, but I can tell you about this other thing. And that's what led to our our discoveries in the Tupac Shakur murder.
Gotcha. And, just for those who haven't been investigating like myself, man, when it first took place, man, I was still 12, 13 years old, and I kind of fell into the whole theories of this, that, and the other, and I kind of got re-engaged back in it recently, and for those who might not be in the know, kind of give everybody just a reverb of how everything went down, even going back to the 94 quad shooting. Did you do any, research on that, the 94 quad shooting over there at the studio in New York back in 94? It cost everything.
Of course, yeah. Well, actually, there's a lot of misunderstandings about that. There was a perception by Tupac that maybe, Puffy Combs and Biggie Smalls and his Junior Mafia crew somehow were involved in setting him up with the quad. But as time went on and we started to get more information about that, it was revealed that Tupac figured out that it wasn't those guys. It was more likely related to like Jimmy Henchman and Haitian Jack. But in time, obviously one of the guys who were directly involved in that, Dexter Isaac, admitted to his involvement, that he was there and he coordinated the whole attack on Tupac at the Quad Studios at the behest of Jimmy Henchman. So ultimately, it turned out that the 94 shooting of Tupac at the Quad Studios was unrelated to anything regarding his murder. But it was one of those things, it was one of those events that kind of was the foundation of the animosity that ultimately began between him and Biggie, and then as soon as he got on with Death Row, he signed on to the animosity that took place between Suge and Puffy. And so it was just, it's an evolution of conflict.
Right. Right. For those who may not know, the original beef between Suge and Puff is the whole Jake Robles murder, which Suge blamed Puff for.
That's right.
Can you give a little bit more info behind that? Because I even heard reports that Orlando Instant was even there in Orlando for that. I don't know if I'm misinformed, but I actually, tried to do my due diligence. I heard, Orlando Yankee was there when the actual Jake Robles murder took place too.
Well, we don't know about QPD. As a matter of fact, we asked him directly about that. He said that he wasn't in Atlanta. However, back in '95, there was a confrontation between Suge Knight and his bodyguard Jake Robles, and then Puffy Combs and his bodyguard Anthony Wolf Jones, and they get into a little shoving match inside of the club, and then outside in the parking lot, one of the guys from Bad Boy, presumably Anthony Jones, pulls out a gun and shoots and kills Jake Robles. Suge always holds Puffy responsible for that shooting and, the loss of his good friend. And so that's really where, it was before that it was really just a war of words. Now blood is on the ground and, you killed my best friend, so I'm going to get even with you. But there was an off-duty officer, the deputy, that positively identified Orlando Anderson and another Southside Crip by the name of Corey Edwards, who was also in Vegas with Orlando Anderson when Tupac was shot. Those two individuals were identified as being at that event that night in Atlanta.
So let me ask you this, man. Vegas, big city, bright lights. I'm sure there's cameras everywhere. The hit took place right there on the strip. Normally, there's stoplight cameras and everything like that. Has there ever been any surveillance footage taken at all? Cause it's kind of like mind-boggling me that, on the main strip in Vegas where everybody's at, I know back then they had stoplight cameras and stuff like that. How isn't there any footage, the actual, hit taking place?
Well, because I think people make the mistakes of understanding things from the way they are now to the way they are, to the way they were. And 20 years ago in Las Vegas, there was not stoplight cameras. There was not intersection, surveillance cameras. I mean, even look at the MGM footage of Orlando Anderson getting attacked by the mob Pyru and Tupac. It's really grainy, Eid-ish coverage.
It is.
And this is one of the most high-profile casinos in Las Vegas, and that's the best that they have to offer. So it puts things into the perspective of that time. There's not a lot of video cameras, and the ones that are out there are very grainy and poor quality. So we have to remember this is 20 years ago, and you can't think about somebody having an iPhone in 1996 with a camera on it.
So going back to Keefy D, where is he now? Is he currently locked up? Has he had a lot of threats on his life now? What's going on with him now that the murder rap doc came out and he's attached to all of this right now?
Yeah, I don't really know. He went back to prison a couple years ago. He did some time for a gun charge, and he got released, I don't know, maybe 3-4 months ago, and is presumably just out living the life of a street life, which is, what he knows. Gangster from Compton, and he's probably just kind of living that day-to-day thing, trying to hustle, make his money, and support his family. But the thing is that everybody in his neighborhood, his circle of friends and circle of influence, none of this is new to any of them. They all knew that he and his crew had shot and killed Tupac, so nothing really changes for him other than he has to deal with the fact that they look at him like, hey, you snitched. You broke the code. But even now, I mean, that's such a common thing, within the atmosphere of gangs and cooperation, and it's not a big, it's not like it was, you know, where people understand now that, hey, if you're in a situation where cooperating with the police will somehow serve your best interest, then by all means, that's probably a good idea. You should do that. It's not like it was back in the 80s and 90s, where if you got a snitch label, then you're going to be alienated from your crew.
Yeah. So let me ask you this: the whole Keefy D interview, would that ever be released? I know you guys let out like segments of it, but like, you know, from top to bottom, would you guys ever release that?
You know, it kind of depends. There's a lot of information on that interview that's not directly related to the murder. And so out of a, I don't know, I would say just out of a sense of mutual respect, and I'm not trying to put PPD in harm's way. I'm just trying to tell the story of what happened so the public can somehow form an opinion, an informed opinion about these murders. That all of the ancillary information that we talk about during his interview, it doesn't really serve any purpose other than to put him on Front Street. And there's just no reason to do that if it's not related to the murders. So I don't know that it'll ever come out.
Gotcha. But the whole Poochie Fox thing, like, you know, the man who trigger man behind taking Biggie Smalls out. You know, I think you did a good job actually presenting it. But the thing is, like, I feel like we still need to learn a little bit more about him. Like, you know, I just know, like, from pretty much what I gathered from the actual, you know, documentary is, like, you know, that's Suge's man, and, you know, you had Richie Wright saying, like, they had kind of, like, a tight relationship, they were cool. And, the thing is, like, will you be able to, like, in the near future, offer actual more, like, info about this guy? Because I feel like we don't know enough about this man who took Biggie out.
Yeah, and I would agree with you. I think that's a fair assessment. I think there's a lot more that we should know. Unfortunately, right when we got to that point where that knowledge was, you know, obtainable, that we were going to investigate that deeper and further, that's when the LAPD decided they were going to kind of back away from the case. They had already proved they weren't involved in the murder, and there was no cover-up. Their lawsuit was retracted, and then everybody just kind of went back to their, you know, desk and started to do, you know, the idea was to get a deeper understanding of him, get more corroboration about his involvement, but we never had the opportunity because the LAPD kind of scrapped the case. But you're right. There should be a deeper understanding of his involvement and his relationship.
Yes, because I mean, pretty much it's just like, all right, that's Suge's man, and I mean, it kind of was painted like he Suge's shooter or something like that, and that's what it is. Like, he killed Biggie, and then he got murdered himself. And that's pretty much what we left, but we don't understand it. But like with Orlando Anderson, like, you know, like he's related to Keefy D. You know, he was in a video with Redman back in, what, 94 or something like that. Like, we know so much about Orlando Anderson, Keefy D, but we don't know too much about, you know, Poochie Fox, you know what I'm saying? So,
yeah.
So, feeding off of that, do you, like, plan on expanding upon the documentary you just put out and giving more info? And since you put this out, have you received more info from people, you know, actually seen it and actually feel like, you know, they want to help you expand on it?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, you know, little by little, more is coming to the surface. The door is kind of open, so I think more people are willing to kind of step through it and tell you what they know. But again, a lot of people want to tell you what they have to say, but they don't want their name associated with it. It's just, you know, everybody's very apprehensive about, you know, being out there, the one who says, yeah, I was there and I knew this and this. So, you know, we have to always balance that level of, you know, trust and confidentiality versus what we can say. So more information has come in. It just kind of further corroborates what we're claiming to know, and you know, we'll have to just wait and see how far people will go with it. So it's tough to say. And again, now I'm not an investigator with the police department anymore, so I'm limited to what I can accomplish.
But let me ask you this though, because like this is what, like, I got a small pinch of like conspiracy theorist in me. You know what I mean? Like I could bat it down a little bit, but the Biggie shooting video, I'm sure you've seen it. You know, it's like there's somebody who's just like a fan in this video statement. You hear like the shots go off and kind of cut off, and then cut back on, and you see somebody kick the shit out of Biggie's van. Did you ever look into that? Or I was always curious of how somebody could get that close to Biggie, especially after like Pac getting taken out in that same way.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything unusual about it or anything really suspicious about it. If I know what car Biggie's in and go out.
It's just the video I was talking about. The video, I mean, you pull up on YouTube, you know what I'm saying? But it's just like, you know, the initial video where, like, the outside of the Peterson museum and the videotaping, it cuts off, and then, like, it kind of shows, like, the backlash, like, after the shooting go up here, shooting, and then, like, you know, you see kind of the vehicle, the SUV that Big was in, kind of, like, peel off to the side, and you see somebody keeping out this shit. And then, you know what I'm saying, and then you see a whole bunch of ruckus, and I just had to ask about that, because that kind of caught my eyes. Like, I'm an internet sleuth. I'm trying to find something about myself, you know what I'm saying? But, you know, I didn't know if you guys ever looked into that, you know? And, you know, on top of that, just going back to Teresa Swan, like, you was able to, you know what I mean, to get her to confess something because you hit her with the April Fool's letter and stuff like that. Like, can she ever be held accountable, you know what I mean, for being a co-conspirator?
No, not based on what we know. There's no way. She has what's known as limited immunity. And the deal was cut between her lawyer and the U.S. Attorney's Office. The same thing with Keefe D and the Tupac murder. They have an agreement that they would provide the information without exposing themselves to self-incrimination. So we can't use their own confessions against them. However, if additional evidence or information or testimony surfaced that identified them, then we can use that potentially to prosecute them. But in the Biggie case, it was such a small conspiracy. I mean, we only know 3 people involved in the conspiracy, and one being dead, who's Poochie, the shooter, and then, of course, Suge Knight, who was the one who solicited it, and then the girl with limited immunity. So it's not practical or plausible, really, to expect that anybody can be held accountable at this point.
All right, so let me ask you this, though. From what I gathered from the actual doc, is like Suge was able to pull it off because he got the, you know, client lawyer privilege to actually go into a little space while he's locked up to actually talk without being monitored. And I don't know who his lawyer was at the time, but like, would his lawyer be held accountable if he's actually, you know, actually making these moves of planning Biggie's death within these confines? You know, you got Teresa Swan, you got his lawyer, and you got Suge. Can his lawyer be held accountable?
Not based on what we know, because nobody ever said that he had direct knowledge that him facilitating these meetings. Some background noise here, I apologize.
That's all good.
Nobody can ever, you know, Teresa Swan didn't say, you know, he was in on the conspiracy. All she told us was that he facilitated the ability for him and for Teresa and Suge to sit down and have these meetings in this attorney-client type of environment where nothing was monitored. So, yeah, it's probably unethical, and there's probably something that would have to do with his maybe disbarment from practicing law in California. But that's a long way from saying he had knowledge of a murder conspiracy and participated in it. You know,
all right, I mean, from my understanding, my mom.
Lawyers do this kind of shady shit all the time. You know, lawyers cut corners, and they do what they have to do in order to defend their client. But that doesn't equate to premeditated, you know, involvement in a murder.
Nah, because what I was trying to get at is, like, how was the money transferred? You know, was it? I mean, because from my understanding of it, it's $13,000 to take Biggie out, and like, was Teresa Swan behind it? I mean, like, help, like, actually get the money to Poochie's house, or who actually got the money to Poochie? You know what I'm saying? I thought it was she is. So that's what I'm saying. Like, why isn't she trying to co-conspirator? It's pretty much just like, you know, there's certain, like, protocols that you gotta abide by to actually, get the story out, and, she could be protected and have immunity or something like that? Like, how does that work?
Well, as I explained, she has limited, we only know about this because she's the one who told us about this.
Gotcha.
So if she's the one who's saying, I made this deal, I went out and I paid him, and he, Suge asked me to do it, I did it, I paid him, and we got the money, and we can't use that information back against her.
Right.
Now, the person that she gave the money to, Pucci, he's dead by the time we get this information. And so, it's just this situation where we have information, but there's very little that we can do with it. It's just one of these, travesties of justice that happen all the time, actually. This just happens to be more important than others, because of the sensational nature and the celebrity nature of it.
All right. So, one of my last questions I got for you is, like, what was, since you put this doc out, have you gotten a reaction from the families of both parties, from Pac families, from Big family? Have you gotten any feedback from them?
I have. I speak to them on a fairly regular basis. My communication with the Shakur family goes through Tupac's cousin, a guy named William Lesane, and I would consider him a friend and somebody who claims to have full support of our document, of the conclusions we drew from our investigation. And I speak with Valletta Wallace occasionally. I spoke to her maybe like 3 days ago, and told her that the documentary is out and doing well, and I feel that I have a very good rapport with her, and that she also fully supports what we're doing. So I believe the families are completely behind it.
And again, I just want to thank you again. I had some questions from, like, just my point of view. I've been following this ever since it happened. So, and I just want to thank you for actually putting in your work and, doing your due diligence. And, like I said, this is the best documentary I've seen. Like, top to bottom, you got actual facts, you got actual footage, you got actual sounds. So, I can't thank you enough, man.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. And you ask the right questions, because these are the questions that the public needs to know. They have to ask the tough questions, but you're never going to be completely satisfied with the answers, because it just will never feel right. It's never going to feel right until somebody's been prosecuted and put in jail. And that's never going to happen. And unfortunately, it's just never going to happen. And so I get it. We can tell you, hey, this is what happened, but it's still not enough, because it's not enough. It's not satisfactory.
It's not, man. And the thing is, like, this is like I mentioned to you earlier, when you spoke earlier before the interview, this is our, like, generation's JFK, So it's like, whatever theory we get hit with, we gonna, like, question it, or we gonna go this way or that way, and nobody's ever gonna be satisfied. But I think from watching your documentary, and anybody who's listening, go back and watch the documentary, this is like the most clear-cut version you can get. And before I let you go, though, what's your whole thoughts on the whole chaos merchant theory? I'm sure you probably heard of it. It's like Russell Poole and his confidants, and they say Lil Hat there had something to do with it. And like, I can't hear you tone your voice right now. But the thing is, like, Snoop had a problem with Pac before he passed. It's like, and that's how I get started. It's just, I don't know if you want to speak on that real quick. If not, we can just cut it off right now.
No, here's the thing is, there are people out there that are either extremely ignorant, and just bear with me for a second, or they just realize that you can do things related to Tupac Shakur and profit, and it doesn't matter if you're just out there selling a product. There's a huge Tupac community with a ton of interest in what happened to him, and you can take advantage of that and sell, a product. But when you really take the time to look into what the claims are with Little Half Dead and the Patton brothers, it's the most ridiculous. It's worse than the first theory they were promoting about the Suge Knight had Tupac killed theory. This one's even much more implausible. And so, you know, I think it's sad, and I also think it's reckless and irresponsible to push such a baseless and disprovable theory upon an audience.
Right.
You know, there's a portion of the audience that's very naive. They don't know any better. A lot of them are young people that haven't figured out how to reason beyond some of these claims. And it's just profiteering.
Right.
So
yeah, and I hear exactly what you're saying, but I think it's my personal opinion. I think Russell Poole was genuine. I see how like he's passionate about it. He might have been, you know, off base, you know what I mean, according to, you know, the information you gathered. But I think he was genuine. But, you know, on the flip side of that, it's just, you know, you kind of got to, you know what I mean, use your own intelligence and just go off that. And it's like, have you ever met Russell Poole? Have you guys ever had a, like, discussion before? Like, personally?
No. I mean, I made several attempts. You know, before I even published my book, I made several attempts through mutual contacts that, hey, Russ, I'm going to come out with this information, and it's going to disprove all of the claims that you've made. Let's sit down and talk so you can have an opportunity to kind of modify your position, because it doesn't, you know, when you look at the facts of the case, from what we really know, what you were doing when you're out there selling this theory, it's really irresponsible. I mean, you look at his claims about this Amir Muhammad. Now, this is a human guy with his own life being accused of a high-profile murder, and there is zero evidence to back up these claims. But if you take information and selectively, you know, kind of piece it together, then, you know, you can create a theory out of anything.
Right.
And then take selective information and say, look, this is the basis of our theory. But when there's all of this other evidence that undermines or disproves those claims or that theory, and you intentionally, you know, prevent that from being publicized, you know, that's not cool. These people like Reggie Ray Jr. and Sharif and the Patton brothers and, you know, Little Half-Dead and Amir Muhammad, these people they deserve not to be falsely accused.
Yeah, so they gotta live their life, so I hear you saying.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about you, but have you ever been falsely accused of anything, much less murder, based on nothing?
Nah.
Well, you know, put yourself in that position. Because that's what we don't do very often. We don't think about, well, what are the repercussions of a person's life when you just randomly go out there and make these claims that they're involved in a murder, especially something as, you know, notorious as, you know, Tupac or Biggie's murders. It's just reckless and irresponsible.
It's all about reckless and irresponsible, man. This is my last question to you, man. Like, yo, have you ever gave any credence to the whole Tupac faked his death theory at all? Because, like, I heard it when it first, like, back in, like, 90, when Tupac died, 96. I heard it, you know, I'm still 12, 13, so I'm impressionable. So, like, I'm reading some websites and thinking the 7-day theory thing is, like, kind of crazy. But then I kind of woken up and I was like, man, I'm a grown man. I'm believing this dumb stuff right here. Like, nah. But then, like, I saw, like, a bald-headed, like, figure in the back of a Idi Amin video for the Outlaws, like, back in, like, 2013. Have you ever gave any credence that Pac might have faked his death? Can you, I mean, if you didn't, can you at least, like, shut these people who think Pac's still alive down right now?
Yeah, it's an irrational belief. I mean, I get it because you want to believe that he's alive. I mean, you want to believe, and you can take these selective lyrics or these ideas and blend them together to support this idea he's alive. But it's actually very, very irrational when you do the math on what it would take to pull off a stunt like this. How many hundreds of people would actually have to be in collaboration with one another. All these people with different interests, different backgrounds, most of don't even know Tupac or even respect the lifestyle or music. And all these professionals, the doctors, the nurses, the coroners, the cops, the lawyers, all of these people that have to all be in agreement that we're going to cover this thing up. And then 20 years, not a single break in the link in 20 years. And these people are all going to risk their professional reputations and put themselves in, this compromising position that if anybody finds out, they lose their jobs, they lose their, it's ridiculous.
Yeah. It's just, people try to look for something. Like, they had the 70s theory, and then, they came out with the autopsy picture and the Machiavelli tattoos listed on his neck, or he's in this video or that video, and he never had an actual funeral and all this other stuff. So, people find some, and that's what kind of, give it legs or whatever. But, you've been investigating this thing for years, so that's kind of why I want to bring it up, you know what I'm saying? Because you guys give people real facts and, kind of, tell people, it's BS. But
I get it. There seems to be a difficulty for people accepting the fact that somebody as great as Tupac, with so much potential and so much to offer, that he could be taken out by some low-life gangster. But hey,
Greg, I don't know if you've seen the video. I think this is what kind of reignited the whole fire of it. Suge, before he actually ran over the guy and went to jail, he actually had an interview with some random TMZ person. He's actually claiming Pac is alive. And the thing is, kind of bugs me out. It's maybe you might be messing with the public, but on top of that, it's if this is your friend, why would you make light of your friend's life? You know what I'm saying? I don't know if you saw the actual interview where Suge just come out and say Pac is alive in Cuba, smoking the Cuban cigars. And I don't know if you ever seen that. But,
yeah, I've seen it. I've also seen one where he also, alludes to Puffy killing Tupac. So, this is Suge Knight, and you have to understand that.
Mark's driving me home. I don't feel good.
You have to understand that Suge Knight likes to play games, and this is kind of what he does. He can make this claim or that claim. Certainly, if Tupac's still alive, and what's the sense of retaliating against Bad Boy and having Biggie killed? That does, the whole thing is preposterous, really. But it's Suge Knight, and so you have to take it with a grain of salt. He's going to do whatever.
Have you ever got the chance to speak to Suge at all at any point?
No, he doesn't submit to police interviews. He's very, very evasive about the whole thing.
No, I seen an interview with Ricky Wright saying that Suge kind of might sing to the cops. It might not be Ricky Wright. It might be somebody else affiliated with that role. I could be wrong. But it is just I thought maybe, because it's back against the wall, you might have talked to you guys at some point or something like that. I know, you kind of want to leave that image where, I don't cooperate, but, it's back against the wall, he's facing life in jail, so, you might kind of switch it up a little bit, but Greg, thanks a lot again, man, can't thank you enough for doing this interview with us, man.
No, it's all good, man, I appreciate it. I like, it's one of my favorite subjects to talk about, so I appreciate you calling me up and putting me on.
Yeah, definitely, man. So, this is 92.9 WDUP. You run this on the Town Hip Hop and all.